Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling a really fascinating subject that many of you have actually asked about, Dim Mak pressure point defense.
Yeah, it's definitely a topic that sparks a lot of curiosity.
Absolutely. And we've got a pretty rich set of sources to dig into excerpts from Grandmaster Dr. Pierdsu Po's works, like how Qi is used in Dim Mak pressure point defense and his 25 important facts, plus insights from Earl Montague, his rules for fighting, Dim Mak facts, and Dim Mak intricacies.
And that personal story from Michael Kelly, DO2, adds a real-world dimension.
Exactly. So our mission here basically is to pull out the core principles of Dim Mak as presented in these texts. We want to understand how it's different from, say, acupuncture or just nerve strikes, and really grasp its potential uses and, well, the dangers too.
And keep it engaging, right? Not just reading from a textbook.
Definitely not. We want to make sense of it all for you. So what's particularly interesting about these sources, right off the bat?
Well, I think it's how they blend these, really ancient concepts like qi with very practical and sometimes quite serious implications for self-defense. And even healing, surprisingly.
Okay, let's unpack that. Starting with qi or qi, qi, you hear different terms, but specifically the Chinese understanding relevant here. It's this vital life force energy, correct?
That's the core idea, yeah.
Yeah.
Grandmaster Sri Po really emphasizes that in Dim Mak, Qi isn't just some vague spiritual thing. It's seen as a fundamental energy everywhere in the earth, the air, plants, animals, in the heavens like planetary influences, and crucially within us. Our health, our very existence, is supposed to depend on this internal Qi flowing properly and interacting with the Qi outside us.
And it sounds absolutely fundamental, like not just important, but essential. The texts say it's needed for birth, it is life, basically. If qi gets disrupted, that's where illness starts, and eventually death.
That's precisely how it's framed. It's described as the absolute ingredient for life. Without it, nothing happens, nothing lives. It's a pretty profound concept when you think about it.
It really is. And they give an example, right? Blood circulation, to illustrate how qi works.
Yeah, that's a fascinating one. Think about blood getting back to the heart, against gravity. Western medicine talks about the pump, the valves.
Right.
But the traditional Chinese medicine view, which informs Dim Mak, suggests qi actually energizes the blood. It gives it the oomph to make that return journey.
Okay, now this feels key. It leads to this principle. Qi leads the blood, and blood is the mother of qi. What does that actually mean in practice?
It means they're deeply interconnected. You influence qi, you automatically affect blood flow. And here's the kicker. If you stop blood flow, the tissues don't get nourishment, but also qi itself doesn't get nourished by the blood.
Ah, so it's a two-way street. Disrupting qi also starves the qi.
Exactly. It creates this potential downward spiral. It suggests a vulnerability that's more systemic than just, hitting a nerve. This principle is really foundational for understanding how Dim Mak techniques are supposed to work.
So, okay, how do these Dim Mak techniques aim to mess with qi? The sources list quite a few methods.
They do. It's not just one thing. They talk about altering the natural flow in specific meridians, these energy pathways.
Right, like the heart meridian, liver, those kinds of things.
Precisely. Or the governing vessel, conception vessel. Then there's damaging the qi supply to the organs themselves, both yin, like heart and lungs, and yang, like stomach and bladder.
So you can target the pathways or the destinations, basically.
Kind of. Or damage the organs directly, affect the qi that controls movement, disrupt the body's protective energy shield, the wei qi.
Wei qi, like an energy armor.
Sort of, yeah. Or interfere with how the body processes food and water, damage qi's ability to hold things in place, like organs.
Oh, wow.
Or even mess with the body's ability to stay warm. It's a pretty comprehensive list of potential disruptions, energetically speaking.
It really is. The texts mention these are the main ways Dim Mak aims to work, right?
Yeah.
Targeting these different aspects of qi.
That's the core idea presented, yeah. Yeah. And Grandmaster Tupo notes his professional manual goes into way more detail, obviously. But the takeaway is that Dim Mak as a system is specifically designed to target these functions.
Okay, to make this less abstract, they use a specific example. CV17, or Shanzong. Where is that point, and why is it such a big deal in these texts?
CV17 is right on the center line of the chest, between the nipples on men, fourth intercostal space on women. It's a powerful example because, well, the texts flat out call it a death point.
A death point. Okay, that gets your attention.
Definitely. They emphasize extreme caution. A forceful strike there is said to potentially cause immediate death, or death within, like, 12 hours. It requires urgent medical attention, obviously.
So energetically, what's supposed to happen if that point is hit?
Energetically, CV17 is seen as crucial for qi in the chest, the respiratory system, the whole upper heater concept, heart and lungs. It's said to regulate the lung organ. So get hit there, and immediate symptoms could be major shortness of breath, chest pain, difficulty breathing, paleness, diaphragm spasms, even palpitations, anxiety, inability to speak, because it's also linked to the pericardium, a heart's protector.
Wow. And a severe hit. It messes up the chi flow badly, makes it go upwards.
Yeah, it's said to bind the chest and send qi upwards abnormally, which is considered really detrimental.
But normally in good health, this point does good things.
Absolutely. It's meant to help expand the chest, circulate lung qi properly, strengthen qi overall, even help with things like transforming phlegm and warming the body. It's seen as a gathering place for qi in the chest, like a reservoir.
And we can't forget the physical side. It's right over the heart.
Critically important. A hard strike there isn't just about energy. You could fracture the sternum, physically damage the heart and lungs, cause cardiac tamponade fluid buildup, or a collapsed lung, a pneumothorax.
So it's a double whammy, potentially. Physical trauma and energetic disruption.
Exactly. The texts mention two sets of symptoms from a martial arts strike there. The direct injury to the point and the impact on the conception vessel meridian itself, especially if a specific counterflow technique is used.
Counterflow, like forcing the energy the wrong way.
That's the idea, amplifying the disruption. So you combine physical damage with that energetic chaos. It's presented as extremely serious with potentially severe long-term consequences if not treated.
Okay, this CV17 example really highlights the concepts, but it's crucial, as the texts say, to distinguish Dim Mak from other things, like it's not nerve strikes.
Right, that's a key distinction they make. While some targets might be near nerves, the principle in Dim Mak is manipulating chi flow, which then affects blood and organs. It's a different mechanism than directly shocking a nerve.
And importantly, it's not acupuncture either, even though they both use points and meridians.
Definitely not. Acupuncture is not Dim Mak. Dim Mak is not acupuncture. They share roots in traditional Chinese medicine theory, but their goals and methods are very different. Well, for starters, there are over 1,000 acupuncture points, but not all are Dim Mak points. Maybe only a fraction are used in Dim Mak.
And acupuncture points are all about healing, right? But Dim Mak uses only some points for healing.
Exactly. It suggests a different focus. And even the theories aren't applied the same way. Like the midnight clock, the diurnal cycle, huge in acupuncture. But the texts say it has very limited use in Dim Mak, maybe only 5–10% relevance.
Interesting. So Dim Mak is really its own specific application of TCM principles, focused on self-defense through energy manipulation. Okay, let's get deeper into those theoretical underpinnings. It uses TCM to predict injury outcomes.
That's what the sources claim, yeah. It's not just hit here, it hurts. It's supposedly using TCM principles to calculate the severity, the potential time until death, and the cause of death from a specific strike.
Wow, that's detailed. But it's not all about harm, right? They mention health improvement methods, too.
Right. It highlights this close link between the Dim Mak points and general TCM principles for well-being. It's presented as primarily for self-defense, but studying it supposedly offers insights into your own health, too.
But there's a big warning sign flashed repeatedly. Don't just learn the point locations.
Absolutely critical warning. Just knowing where the points are is potentially really dangerous.
Huh.
You need to understand the how and the why, the underlying principles, to avoid seriously hurting yourself or someone else by applying it incorrectly.
And this connects to a pretty big claim. Dim Mak can supposedly boost your power and focus, like 10 times or more, making techniques effective without brute strength.
Yeah, that's a significant claim in the texts. The idea is targeting specific points allows for much greater effect, evening the odds against a larger attacker, for instance.
Then this rather alarming statistic, over 90% of instructors might not have the full picture.
That is a concerning figure mentioned. The suggestion is that many are teaching without fully understanding the mechanisms, the reasons for specific points, the correct striking methods, the consequences, the timing.
And even teaching the locations wrong.
That's the claim, yeah, which would make it ineffective at best and potentially dangerous in other ways. It really hammers home the need for caution about where you get your information.
Yeah, the texts warn about errors in books, videos, articles. It's risky if you can't tell good info from bad.
Which brings up the question, what is authentic Dim Mak knowledge? The texts lay out 5 key qualifications needed for someone to really have a complete understanding.
Okay, let's tick through them. 1, Being a fully trained, experienced traditional martial artist from an authentic lineage. Why lineage?
The reasoning is that Dim Mak was historically guarded, passed down within specific traditional schools, kung fu initially, then some Japanese arts. That unbroken transmission is seen as key.
2. Receiving full, proper Dim Mak instruction from their teacher as part of that lineage training.
Right, not just picked up from a book, it needs direct teaching from someone qualified.
3. This one might seem less obvious, holding professional qualifications in clinical acupuncture. Why?
The logic presented is that real-world clinical practice gives you a deep, practical understanding of symptoms, disease, and how energy imbalances actually manifest in people. It grounds the theory. You see the consequences firsthand.
Okay, that makes sense. And 4 builds on that. Actively practicing both martial arts and acupuncture professionally, continuously.
Yes, the texts argue for a synthesis, the martial application, combined with the ongoing clinical understanding of the body's energy systems.
And 5th, fluency in English, essentially for clear communication and avoiding things getting lost in translation.
Precisely. To articulate these complex ideas accurately, and the texts flatly state that people with all 5 qualifications are extremely rare, which kind of explains why incomplete knowledge might be common.
That really sets a high bar. Now, shifting gears slightly, there's that anecdote from Michael Kelly about his brother Gene. What happened there?
It seems to illustrate the true spirit of martial arts. Gene, an experienced martial artist, saw a young guy aggressively attacking a smaller, older taxi driver after a minor accident. Unprovoked attack.
And Gene stepped in.
Immediately, put himself between them, parried the attacker's next move, used a hip throw, then a joint lock, and apparently a strike to the gallbladder, 20-point base of the skull.
And that ended it.
Instantly, according to the story. When the attacker came to, Gene just stared him down, and the guy and his friends backed off. No further trouble.
So the key takeaway is self-defense. Protecting someone vulnerable, not showing off.
Exactly. No ego involved, just protecting life.
Yeah.
It also highlights reacting decisively, that reptilian brain response Montague talks about, not overthinking. And that glare having an effect is interesting too.
And Gene's reaction afterward, humility, wanting to learn more about Dim Mak even after successfully using a related technique.
Right. Contrasting that with masters who think they know it all without real-world experience, it emphasizes continuous learning.
This leads nicely into Earl Montague's rules for fighting. Very practical stuff. Rule 1, never step backwards. Why not?
Montague says fighters develop subconscious expectations, switches. Stepping back is often taught, so it's expected. By not doing that, by maybe moving forward or angling off, you disrupt their timing, their plan. Plus, he links moving forward to a more primal instinct.
Okay. Rule 2, never fight the peripheral attacking weapon, fight the whole body. Focus on the bigger picture.
Exactly. Don't fixate on just the fist or foot coming at you. React to the entire body movement that generates the attack. This lets you close the distance, maybe jam their technique before it gets full power. He mentions eagle vision, wide peripheral awareness.
Rule 3, never meet force on force, always move at a slight angle. The V-shaped movement.
Yeah, instead of blocking head-on, you angle off, redirect their force, like a ricochet. Use their momentum against them, makes your counter more powerful, and puts you in a better position.
Rule 4, never use 2 steps in fighting. Make the defense the attack.
Right. Most attackers expect block, then strike. If your block is the strike, or immediately flows into it, you take away that moment they have to recover or counter. It's about breaking the rhythm.
Rule 5, never look at the attacking portion. Back to eagle vision again.
Yep. Use peripheral vision, see the whole body. Montague suggests this lets you reflexively sense the shadows or hollows the Dim Mak points without consciously looking for them, more instinctive targeting.
Rule 6, never use a lock or hold as your main fighting method, especially against multiple attackers or weapons. Too risky.
That's his argument for street defense. Locks can tie you up, leave you vulnerable. He says stun them first with vital point strikes, then control if needed. For weapons, he suggests evade, bump, attack. Not trying to grab a blade.
Rule 7, never use pushes or pulls in self-defense, even though they're in Tai Chi push hands.
He clarifies push hands is mostly training, for sensitivity, balance, timing. In a real fight, he says pushes pulls aren't primary weapons, except maybe in extreme cases. Their real value in Tai Chi, he argues, is setting up the hidden Dim Mak strikes within the forms.
Rule 8, never go to the ground. Pretty self-explanatory against multiple attackers.
Yeah. Very dangerous situation. He stresses internal art should give you skills to avoid going to ground, to defend against takedowns.
And Rule 9, The legs are for standing, the hands are for fighting, discouraging fancy kicks.
Pretty much. High kicks, complex kicks, risk your balance, leave you open. He advises focusing on hands, and if you must kick, use short, low kicks from the front leg, quicker, safer.
These rules paint a very pragmatic picture. Now, Montague's specific insights on Dim Mak itself. He starts by clearing up confusion.
Yeah, he notes there's a lot of noise from people practicing arts that only vaguely touch on Dim Mak. He insists Dim Mak needs years of internal training and actual fighting ability. It's not a magic add-on if you can't fight already.
He mentions children's strikes, basic Dim Mak anyone can learn.
Right, simpler techniques for basic self-protection, like slaps to the back of the head or strikes to ST9, the carotid sinus, which can cause a temporary blackout by dropping blood pressure. He also lists points on the gallbladder, intestines, etc. that affect blood pressure.
But he warns strongly against using even these lightly.
Hugely warns against it. Says all knockouts or Dim Mak strikes are dangerous, even seemingly minor ones, because of potential long-term chi blockages. He says it's not just putting someone to sleep, it's concussing the brain.
And he doubts you can easily knock out someone resisting, unlike in demos.
Exactly. He contrasts controlled seminar settings with real fights against skilled opponents who don't want to be knocked out. Says it's practically impossible in the latter case.
Which brings it back to needing that deep internal training for the more advanced stuff.
Yes. Those electrical point strikes, he says, require years of Qigong or similar practice to transfer Qi effectively. And you can't just take Dim Mak principles and slap them onto, say, karate. The movement styles are too different.
He also talks about complete martial systems having self-defense, self-healing, and a medical side.
Right. Questioning systems that lack that holistic integration, which was traditional in China. He contrasts the old apprentice system with modern courses, stressing the importance of the key cultivation aspect.
And advanced practitioners can show Dim Mak effects at a healing level.
That's what he claims, demonstrating the principles without needing to practice damaging strikes. It links back to yin and yang healing arts becoming martial arts just by changing intent and pressure.
He makes a bold claim. Taiji Quan is the original Dim Mak art.
Yeah, arguing its deadly side was hidden or lost over time, leading to its current perception as just gentle exercise. He also notes it's hard to master both hard and soft styles because their principles often conflict.
And size doesn't matter in Dim Mak. It's the fight in the dog.
Exactly. And accessing that illogical, instinctive state needed for real fights, which internal arts help cultivate. He also criticizes the rush for black belts over true mastery in teaching for the right reasons.
Okay, this sets the stage for his sudden violence system. What is that?
It's his eclectic system, mainly from Taiji Quan and Baguazhang, emphasizes that effective street defense is violent, not passive. The secret, he says, is in the execution, especially body movement, and generating Fujing explosive internal power.
Fujingang, that's the engine of it, both physical and internal.
Yes, explosive power using Qi. He says you learn the physical mechanics first. He even describes tests. External Feijing lets you repel a mitt with fingertips. Internal Feijing makes the holder's palm sore from a short strike.
And he teaches 3 specific Feijing punches in the system.
Right. The Taiji snap punch, the penetration punch, and the back fist.
Okay, break down the Taiji snap punch. Looseness, waist power.
Starts totally loose sung. Power from a sudden waist twist connected to the arm. There's a coiling, then explosion, then a secondary waist snapback, twisting power. The fist rotates on impact, spiral power. Hits with the last 3 knuckles. Targets, ST5 on the jaw, ST9 carotid, GV26 below the nose.
Penetration punch. Different mechanics.
Palm slightly up, hits with pinky side and first 2 knuckles. Opposite waist, shake to the snap punch, designed to get through a guard. Targets, temple, GB3, and the mind point near the ear.
And the back fist. Whip-like.
Yeah, power from the whole body, turning, then snapping the waist back violently just before impact. Loose wrist, acts like a whip end. Hits with the back of the fist. Targets, mind point on the chin, CV24 below the lip.
And again, being soft and sinking Qi is crucial for all this power.
Absolutely fundamental for internal power generation. He also stresses real fights are close-up, so these short-range Feijing methods are key. His teaching starts with fighting skills, then introduces the rules, and he's cautious about teaching point striking safely.
That ethical angle again. Okay, finally, Dim Mak intricacies, going deeper than just points.
Yeah, he really criticizes superficial understanding and dangerous demos. Says Dim Mak is a way of life, self-control, mastery, not a party trick. Needs years of study. The current widespread but shallow knowledge. He blames seminars.
Knowing locations and directions is just the tip of the iceberg.
A tiny fraction, he says. You need to know why it works, the effects of different directions and power levels, long-term results, revival techniques, striking with against energy flow, stud-up points versus main strikes,
And the 5 ways to knock out and revive, combining techniques.
all that, plus the highest level, healing with Dim Mak.
He mentions the history Chang Sanfeng also created Tai Chi, combining acupuncture knowledge for a hidden deadly art.
Around 1300, yeah. Embedding lethal moves in flowing forms. Many applications now obscured or lost.
He revisits Saint Nine carotid sinus knockout point, but also delayed death point, stroke years later.
That's the claim. Then he lists the 5 ways to knock out. What are they? 1, blunt force trauma to head. Simple enough. 2, constricting lung muscles. Strikes the same 15 SI11 scapula. 3, stopping blood to brain. Carotid choke, sleeper hold.
Okay.
4, causing heart rate drop. Strikes to St. 9, or points on gallbladder intestine meridians. He details GB14 above the eye. Upward strike to rush death risk downward. Heart slow stops. Mentions GB21 as an antidote for sunstroke, though, showing the duality. Also mentions using setup points first.
And the 5th way.
Neurological shutdown, slapping certain facial areas. But he warns this is extremely dangerous long-term, risks paranoia and nervous disorders, strongly advises against it.
He also brings up 3 Dim Mak, combining different types of strikes.
Yeah, integrating nerve strikes, setups, real Dim Mak, chi strikes, neurological shutdown strikes into combos. Gives an example involving a back palm, a tiger paw to heart 3, and a face slap as a counter. Shows the potential complexity.
And controlling Dim Mak points, using lighter pressure.
Uses TW17 behind the ear as an example. Light pressure to control someone drunk without serious harm. He still cautions against trying any points casually, but describes feeling TW17 on yourself, light pressure for lung healing, medium for spasm, maybe a tickle.
So wrapping up these intricacies, it's complex, deadly, evolved from secret to public, and needs immense respect.
That's the strong closing message. It's not something to be trifled with.
Okay, so bring this whole deep dive together. Dim Mak is incredibly complex, rooted in TCM and Qi, definitely distinct from acupuncture. Huge potential for harm, but also maybe for healing at high levels. Requires immense training, understanding far beyond just points, and a really responsible mindset.
Absolutely. Which leads us to a final thought maybe for our listeners. You have this system, Dim Mak, with this intense potential for harm, right alongside principles of self-defense, preserving life. What does that duality tell us about power and knowledge in any field?
That's a deep question.
And how does responsibility change as someone learns more, gets more skilled? Does deeper knowledge demand greater restraint?
Something definitely to think about. We invite you to ponder that and maybe explore Qi and TCM further based on what we've uncovered today. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.